Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest webinar, The Plan and IMPLAN, how planners can promote sustainable and coordinated development within a specific region. If you have a question throughout the presentation, feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you and you can unmute yourself at that point, or go ahead and post a question in the chat as well. Joining me today, I have Jackson Retzer, who is our Regional Sales Manager here at IMPLAN, and he is going to get us going. So with that, take it away, Jackson.
Thank you, Candy, and welcome everybody to our latest webinar, The Plan within IMPLAN. I'm excited to kind of jump in and show a lot of what we have to offer on some underlying data, as well as some workforce development initiatives here that we can do with IMPLAN. So let's get right into it. First, for what we're going to be covering here, we're going to kind of dig into what we offer as a data house, and basically what we collect on an annual basis, and just basically the value of having over 90 different data sources that we have within the application, and easier to quantify what a region looks like economically. Second, after discussions with planners and workforce developers that I've had conversations with, our occupational data has been extremely valuable for what they are looking at, what they have already within the region, and then identifying what needs growth and what can grow. And then we are going to, throughout the presentation, see some different examples of where we can add value to a SEDS, or a comprehensive economic development strategy, a behemoth of a report that is required by the EDA for funding opportunities throughout the country. And then finally, we will dig into how those funding opportunities can be leveraged with IMPLAN, and kind of walk through some examples of how we can get into that as well. So our first topic, the value of underlying data, what IMPLAN has to offer with what is already shown and collected on an annual basis from different government organizations. So like I mentioned, we do use over 90 different government sources, which allows us to dig down into granular regions at the national, state, county, and zip code level. It also allows us to have the most transparency in our data as well. We're not going to have any black boxes within the data. This is all things that are collected publicly and provided by our lovely government. Some things high level that we have, there's some GDP, household income average, total employment, those job titles of the total employment, and then the average wages and salary specific to the job title and the industry available, and much, much more. Something that has always caught people's eye when I'm going through the app has been our regional purchasing coefficient, and that is basically allows you to see an industry specific commodity demand within a specific region. Are you buying commodities within our region, or are we outsourcing those different commodities? And then, like I said, too, our occupational data, it is still fairly new, and it's always fun to kind of walk through this data set provided by ONET data source, and we are going to go into the specific job titles, the hours worked, core competencies, so our knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for that job title, and this is all going to be specific to the region collected as well. So before we get into some underlying data, I do want to kind of point out that this is actually brand new. It just came out on October 31st from the EDA, and some SEDS, or Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy summary, and kind of the things that they want within the report in order to get those fundings throughout the year. So demographic and socioeconomic data, we do offer demographic data. We have a ton of ACS data within our underlying data. We can show basically labor force characteristics, we can show age, we can show education. We'll get into some different tables there as we go through the presentation. Environmental, the EDA is requiring that you go through the EPA or US Fish and Wildlife Services. We do have a partnership with EPA and their extended input-output model as well. So we can run different environmental impacts within IMPLAN and showcase different different factors of what is happening if we were to go through with a project of development. Some infrastructure assets, emerging or declining clusters or industry sectors. This is where we can go through and see year-over-year trends as we have data dating back to 2001. So we can dig into what an industry looked like in 2005 and now what it looks like in 2021. And now our 2022 data coming out here soon at the end of the year as well. We can see relationship of areas economy to the larger region at question. So we can go into our MRIO analysis. We'll dig into that as well. Candy will get there. It's basically our multi-regional input output. We can see leakages to a larger region if we wanted to run a specific area there as well. And then we can get into workforce issues. We can see what is needed, what we have, what can grow. We can all do that research within IMPLAN as well. And then other factors as housing, health services, educational. All this lives within our underlying data, and we're going to jump into that here soon as well. Another requirement that the EDA has for these analysis are a SWOT analysis. So the strengths of what our economy looks like, we can dig into that. Industry supply chains, clusters, extensive port, rail, all those things we can analyze here. Weaknesses relative to competitive advantages, what risks are we going to run into, all that types of analysis there. And then our opportunities, this is where our impact analysis is going to be very useful. We can run various projects or ideas that we have to grow our economy and see what the annual impacts to that will be. And then as threats as well. And this is all just required in the report, those behemoth reports that I see on an everyday basis. So with that, I want to show a example of a SEDS that I pulled up from the BCD-COG, or Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester Council of Governments. This is something that they put together for a 5-year plan. I just wanted to showcase that these data points here are all within IMPLAN right there, ready to go. Maybe a few calculations needed on the user side, but it's all right there and easily accessible and downloadable as well. Some demographic data as well, like I mentioned. We can get into population growth. We can get into the age, the race distribution, all ACS data. It lives within IMPLAN as well. And then finally here too, what they provided on the employment status. One thing that I did want to mention is that IMPLAN can take it one step further. Instead of showing just the employment by industry in the region, we can actually showcase the actual job titles involved in those industries as well. And so with that, here is just a screenshot of within the app. Now we're in the app and we can see right off the bat that in North Carolina, we have data year 2021, we have GDP, we have total personal income, we have total employment. This is all just living within one place. You don't have to go scurrying around to different data sources. It all lives within one place. We do all the heavy lifting on that front. And here is our demographic data, the ACS data source that we pull from. This is just a few tables that I pulled from what we have. We have a lot more tables. Couldn't put them all into one slide, but race and ethnicity percentages for North Carolina specifically. We have unemployment by age. So this is where we can see the threats from our SWOT analysis. We can look at households and their income and how many there are. And we just have all the data here within one place, making it easier to conduct these SEDS reports as well. And then lastly, our region details on occupation data. This has been the hot topic for planners that I've been having talks with. We can go into what we already know, what we have. You can see at the top that I filtered this table by industry 243. This is going to be metal cans manufacturing, and we can see the actual job titles. So we have welders and cutters and miscellaneous assemblers. You can see the number of employees that we have, and then on the far right, you'll see the hours worked. That's why we have some decimal points in there. We can see the average wage and salary and compensation and so on and so forth. So now we can get into our workforce development. And what I did basically was go ahead and let's start an impact or an example. We'll kind of go through that together as well. So this is the example that I have created for you all. This is going to be within North Carolina specifically. We have a construction and operations economic impact analysis. So we have here the construction on the top line. It's going to be construction of new manufacturing structures. That's going to be a $70 million project to construct that. And then the operations, we're going to need 50 employees, and we're going to have $50 million of more economic output to this metal cans manufacturing industry. And so here I pulled a few tables from the results of this. This is all together, so this is construction and operations. You'll see that we'll have the direct, indirect, and induced. So the direct is going to be the 50 and the 70 million together and directly creating 586 jobs. Indirect, this is going to be throughout our supply chain. So you'll see on the right side that all of these industries are being hit just from the two construction and then the operations of the metal cans. And then the induced is going to be based on household income spending. So the new jobs that we created, about 600 jobs that we created there, we're going to have spending of those new employees throughout the state of North Carolina, creating an additional 236 jobs, whether that be spending money on rent, going to the bars to spend money, to go out to eat, all of those types of things, those impacts there. And then we also have our tax results broken out, direct, indirect, and induced, down to federal, state, county, special districts, and sub-county as well. Those are going to help in the funding opportunities and getting those projects approved as well. So I broke these out to the construction occupations that are needed to complete this project. You can see at the top, I filtered the most needed jobs. So we have construction laborers, carpenters, first line supervisors. We see how many we need, and then we can also reference this back to our underlying data. We can see what we already had. Do we have enough construction laborers within the region to complete this project? Can we get this done, or do we need to outsource and recruit more construction laborers? And we can see what they're going to be getting paid on an annual basis as well throughout this project too. And just to put it right up next to the operations as well, since we do have two different events going on, we have the welders, the miscellaneous assemblers, and we are going to actually, if you want to go right to the next slide, Candy, we have the comparison of our current workforce in North Carolina compared to what we had on the required workforce. Now, the top two that I had here were going to be on the construction event alone, and then the bottom two are going to be from the operations. So we see some differences in average wage and salary to what we already had on the underlying data compared to, yes, it looks like we have the workforce to complete this project within North Carolina. And we don't need to outsource any new jobs that way as well. Oh, Candy, I think you are on. Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. I'm going to go through some tips for grant applications. As you know, there are different requirements for every different type of grant. One of my favorites, and maybe one of yours, is the good old ED-900. It's part of most Economic Development Administration grants and was actually revised on Halloween this year. Pretty standard form of the EDA. By digging into pieces of it, Section C in the project region section is all about the area where your event is going to happen. This section calls for either a feasibility or economic impact analysis. Section E outlines the economic impact for the project. It states that you must, quote, provide a clear and compelling justification for the long-term potential economic impact of the proposed project through anticipated job creation or retention, private investment leveraging, number of businesses or collaboration supported, or other appropriate measures. And this is what we do best here at IMPLAN. As you can see, we're one of only 2 suggested applications for the economic impact section, right there in section E6. Now, if you are lucky enough to have to fill out the ED-900C, then IMPLAN can also help you fill out the expected environmental impacts associated with the proposed federal actions. So what we want to do here at IMPLAN is help you put your best foot forward. You can see from what Jackson showed you, there's a ton of data points inside that can help tell the story of your region. IMPLAN can look at things like Jackson showed you the state, but we can also look at zip codes, counties, congressional districts, states, or any combination thereof. As the ED-900 form states, you may want to compare your SEDS region to the remainder of the state, or if you'd like to examine a project that would be better suited in one SEDS region over another, comparing supply chain, workforce. You can also link regions via multi-regional input-output analysis. So what is that? Well, MRIO is a technique that allows you to track how an impact in one region affects the production of industry and household spending in any other region. So you basically link 2 regions. So you can do county to county, state to state, one county to the rest of the state, whatever you would like. How that works, let's say a new firm is opening up in North Carolina, shown here on the left. We see that initial change of how some of that spending stays in North Carolina and some of it leaks out. Now, if we link North Carolina to South Carolina via MRIO, as shown on the right, we can capture the spending that occurs in South Carolina. Some of the inputs may be produced in South Carolina and are imported into North Carolina. Through this trade, there's a production change then in South Carolina requiring inputs perhaps produced it back in North Carolina. So a new branch of those backward linkages is then created in North Carolina. As always, jobs supported by the new production affect the supply chain, and those working in the supply chain. All of these people earn income, and potentially people live across the state lines. To be honest, our amusement park is located half in North Carolina and half in South Carolina. So as households spend their incomes, there's trade between the regions in the supply chain. For example, restaurants in North Carolina are frequented by workers that reside in North Carolina, but they also may get produce from a farmer in South Carolina. And that income is then triggering new chains of spending throughout the 2 regions. There are a lot of reasons you may want to consider using multi-regional input-output or MRIO. First off, it improves the methodology of the study. It improves the regional specificity and limits the aggregation bias if you were looking at just the state, for example. It examines the interconnectedness of multiple regions. As we know, we live in a global economy, so no one region can produce everything required for consumption. And this allows you to track the leakages from one region to another region. Remember, IMPLAN is not just industry analysis. We can obviously do examples like what Jackson showed you with construction and operations, but we may not know what industry would be affected, but we may not know what commodity, what item might be affected. We would then use a commodity event. We can also look at a single or multi-industry contribution, what the industry looks like right now in our region, including its current supply chain. And we can also look at a change in something like an increase in minimum wage or incentives for folks moving to a specific region, the stimulus checks like we saw during the pandemic, modeling all of those as income changes. Economic indicators, as Jackson showed on that first results screen, are only part of the complicated region where we live and work. We can look at things like location quotients and basic and non-basic industries. We can use the results from analysis to show not only changes to employment, labor income, contribution to gross domestic product, output and taxes, but also the changes in occupations as well as environmental effects. IMPLAN bridged the EPA input-output emissions data to our industries, which gives us the ability to see the environmental impacts tied to the economic impacts. These environmental indicators are available within the application, both within the details of your region and the results, so you can see what is going on in your region as well as what would happen from a change. There are 8 major categories of the data, and they're what are referred to as the satellite accounts. And those are as listed on your screen. Each one of those has more detailed tags underneath it that represent more specific types in that broader group. Going back to the results for that environmental, or for the metal can operations, excuse me, the environmental picture, we can see the summary results here on the screen. So we see releases for all of those 8 categories: criteria pollutants, greenhouse gases, land use, mineral use, etc. And here you can see the operations of that proposed metal can facility would release 134,000 kilograms of criteria pollutants and 1.6 million kilograms of greenhouse gases annually. And you can dig even deeper into this to look at what types of greenhouse gases and how those all play out, again in the direct, indirect, and induced, just like you saw in the summary results. So just to kind of wrap it all up, we're here to help. We've been a standard tool for academic and professional economists for decades. The methods we use to produce our economic data sets and economic impact estimates have been widely published in professional publications, as well as peer-reviewed academic journals. And many of these methods are considered standard best practices in a wide variety of economic fields today. So you've listened to us talk for quite a while. At this point, we'll open it up for questions. And I have one of our other staff members running that for us. Let's see what we've got here. All right, first one from Mariella. I see on the website there's a sector named biomass. Is there a way to know of that, what is coming from trees or agriculture? So we looked that one up, and that is falling under NAICS 221117, and that's biomass, electric production generation, generation under biomass. And the description states that industry comprises establishments primarily engaged in operating biomass electric power generation. They use biomass from wood, waste, alcohol, fuels to produce energy. So hopefully that answers your question there. If you want to ask something more specific, we can always follow up with you after this as well. Next question, does IMPLAN provide mapping capabilities? We do have some mapping capabilities in our data library product, which we would be happy to show you if you want to shoot an email over to support@implan.com. We can send you some resources that show what mapping capabilities we have on that data library side. Thanks for this MRIO overview. For my project, it's county to county. Okay, great. Yeah, so super easy to set up inside IMPLAN. Link county A to county B, or if you want to link your county to the remainder of the state and see how that supply chain across your entire state is able to support projects happening within your county as well. All right, for example, we have a subscription to Ohio, but our region is very close to Michigan. Would I need to pay for Michigan to link an Ohio-based project using MRIO? Jackson, do you want to take this one? Oh,
yeah,
maybe
sure
I lost
thing.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh,
nope, I'm here. Sorry about that. I was trying to find the unmute button. Yes, you will have to go ahead and do another state package if you wanted to get into the impacts to something outside your subscription. We can obviously talk further about that if you'd like to send an email to sales@implan.com.
All right. We will also be sharing the entirety of the presentation on our website after the event and after everything gets processed. So you'll get an email with the link to that if you want to revisit anything that was said today. Next question. The software can model impacts for new residential construction, correct? Taxes, spending, jobs? Absolutely, Kyle. There are a few different construction industries inside IMPLAN that you can pick, whether it's a manufacturing facility or residential or multifamily residential and things like that. All right, next question. If you have access to one state, can you still see data from other states in the MRIO? If you only have a package that gives you access to one state, let's use that example for Ohio, you're not going to be able to link that to any other states using MRIO because that's not part of your plan. Next, can I use IMPLAN to see, for example, what is the environmental impact of New York forestry and logging? Absolutely. Not only will it give you the environmental impact broken out by those 8 categories, you'll also be able to see the economic impact. So while it is great for the economy, maybe not so great for the environmental results. If you are licensed for one state, can you do MRIO that may cross the state boundaries? You would, again, have to have the subscription for anything that was in a different state. If you wanted to look at, let's say, Ohio and Michigan, you'd need both of those as well. And another one, a common issue in assessing impacts within a single jurisdiction, like a county or a city. I understand how we can run MRIO by zip code. How do we run an analysis where we have county level green business activity, but want to disaggregate it by zip code so we can see the impacts by community socioeconomic traits? The results in IMPLAN aren't going to show you how that is affecting certain socioeconomic groups because that doesn't necessarily make sense. But what we can do is put the project together by creating different groups on our impact screen. So various zip codes, for example, that would create the city, leave them all separate. And then wherever the event was happening, even if it's across multiple events, we put that in the specific zip code, click that MRIO button, and then we'd be able to see the effects of what was happening in each zip code. And then we could tie that with the data of what we know is in the zip code. I wouldn't recommend at all tying occupation data or any kind of economic impact indicators like employment, wages, or anything to anything based on the demographic data because we don't know who would be hired with that. But we could definitely assign environmental impacts based on where things were happening. Next question, is there a way to model impacts from something like consolidation of services? A client wants an impact to report for something like moving their police, gym, public health services under one roof. Is there an easy way to do something like this, or is that an opportunity to get creative with IMPLAN? Well, I think there's always an opportunity to get creative with IMPLAN. And this isn't very complicated, so something pretty easy to set up. Basically, what you want to see is what they have now and what that change would be to moving everything under one roof. So not too bad in terms of how to set that up. But again, if you have specific questions, you can always email support@implan.com. So I don't know if I have any hands up right now because GoToWebinar is being feisty. Let me scroll to the top here. Tim, did you have a question? I see your hand up. Nope, Tim changed his mind. All right, how about Charles? Okay, Richard? Charles, I see you unmuted. Did you have a question? All right, well, if anyone does have questions and they're not being able to unmute themselves or whatever the case may be here, I am trying to unmute you on my side, but feel free, email sales@implan.com. Oh, we found someone. Okay, who do we have?
Yeah, this is Richard McCann. Yeah, I was muted by you on your side. My question, I'm following up on the zip code question, which is actually quite a common analysis that we do or have done in various ways. But I was wondering if we could do this inside of IMPLAN, which is we have data or have estimates of various activities and various activities at a county level, but not disaggregated any further than the county level. But we want to see the zip code output, and then basically with the zip code output, if you have socioeconomic data by zip code, you can make some estimates on what the likely socioeconomic impacts are based on ACS data, likely trends. I'm asking a question of how do we, I had thought that IMPLAN would take the county level data and then do the allocations within IMPLAN that would then put out the data, the actual jobs, income, et cetera, output by zip code. But from your answer, it sounds like that's not the case, that we actually need to have the inputs broken out by zip code.
That is correct. Yeah, IMPLAN is not going to know where it occurs within the zip code. If you have a bunch of, let's say there's 10 zip codes in a county and you run it through the county, IMPLAN's not going to know where that happens within the county unless we tell it.
And then, so do you have
my suggestion would be then, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not possible to get most of these estimates by zip code. It's hard enough to get it down to a county level.
Sure. No, I completely understand.
So does IMPLAN provide a way of getting the zip code level industry data, industry and commodity data, so that we can allocate our costs across commodities and industries that can then be put into events by zip code?
Yes, all of the data is available at the zip code level. So you could look at an individual industry and look across, let's say, our 10 zip codes in my made-up county and see where that industry currently exists within the region. And then be able to allocate based on that. Or you could make some assumptions, like we know it's going to be in one of these 3 zip codes, so split it between those 3.
Yeah, we don't have that data, and we're dealing with a place that well, the big count. We are in California. Counties have dozens, if not hundreds, of zip codes.
Okay, yeah, then we don't want to do that.
Right.
So what we could do then is take a look in our data library product, which again, we can send you some resources on how to do this, is look at all of the county or all of the zip codes in your county, and then see where that industry exists and what the employment and output is already in that region. And then we can make certain assumptions moving forward from that on how to run the impact. So that's pretty straightforward.
And we have a county level subscription. Well, actually, we have a zip code subscription. Are we able to access the data library with that subscription?
That would be a question for your customer success manager, because there are different packages. Again, email support@implan.com and just ask. Or if you go to IMPLAN, it will show up on your dashboard if you have it.
Okay. Okay, I'll check on that then.
Perfect. And again, always feel free to reach out if you have any kind of questions. Salespeople can always be reached sales@implan.com. Our customer success and education services people can be reached at support@implan.com. So don't be shy. Feel free to reach out and ask us any questions that you can. I think Richard was the last hand up. Anyone else have a question before we wrap up for the day? All right, well, hearing none, I really appreciate all of the questions today and all of the engagement on behalf of myself, Jackson, and the rest of the team here at IMPLAN. Thank you so much for joining us and have a fantastic day.
Thank you, everybody.